Welcome back to the channel, Cowboys Nation. I'm your boy Mac and Mike, and man, it's been a tough year to be a Cowboys fan, but you got to stay locked in, and hopefully we'll be better next year. But it is what it is. We all knew that the all in was all you know what, but it's where we are. So before I get to the topic, can you do me a huge favor and drop a like and subscribe to the channel so I keep giving you guys this type of content? So I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to 2025. And since it's obvious that the season is over, it's time for us to do a deep dive into the 2024 Dallas Cowboys roster. Today, we're going to break down every position group based on my assessment, and I'm going to give honest grades so we can see if we have a winning roster on our hands, which I can already spoil for you and tell you we don't. And we're going to also see if major changes are needed in order for us to be competitive because we're currently how the roster set up. I think we could have been competitive, but we'll talk about more so why we're not. And then we're gonna have grades realistically for most of the roster is gonna be between C's and F's. But there's at least one bright side to the Dallas Cowboys roster, but we'll get to that. We have a lot to unpack here, so let's jump into the details and see where the Cowboys roster stands in 2024. So starting with the quarterback position, I'm giving this position group a C because Dak got hurt, and in all honesty, he wasn't playing well before he got hurt. There were some flashes, but just not enough consistency. But we've also seen some games, like the Steelers game, where Dak did his thing. He did what he had to do to win. But then we saw some games like the 49ers games where in certain key moments, he turned over the ball, which which uh, altogether came back to why we lost that game in certain big moments. I still, for me, have more blame to do with the scheme, so it's very hard to evaluate this group because again, Dak is out for the year, and we don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back from a season-ending injury. But I think a lot of the issues that Dak was having stem from the injuries, and a lot of it, I'll say, is poor and predictable play calling from Mike McCarthy. And not being able to run the ball again is going to do more damage to the quarterback than a lot of people realize because you see a lot of the quarterbacks now that are successful, a lot of them have run games. Dallas Cowboys were at the bottom of the league when it comes to rushing. So it's not surprising that it's going to affect the QB. And I think the low hanging fruit for a lot of people, and it's easy to do, is to blame Dak. But we had a lot of scheme issues that never got fixed. And having glorified wide receiver three and fours to be the help for CeeDee Lamb was just going to be a recipe for disaster. So for me, the quarterback group had to be ranked a C because it was just too inconsistent. But hopefully things get better with better coaching and a better scheme. But for all those people that said Cooper Rush or Trey Lance over Dak, y'all saw what those guys looked like in Mike McCarthy's scheme against Philly. So y'all can complain about Dak getting paid all you want. We don't have nothing behind Dak at all. Those guys not doing nothing for you. I'm just telling you that right now. If not for Dak, we probably wouldn't have won a game. It is what it is. Okay, moving on to the running backs in the backfield. I gave this position group a D. This group has really struggled to get traction. Uh, there's a lack of explosive playmaking. It's holding the team back, and just no consistency in general. And again, for me, You're going to see this common thing. I believe it's mainly because of coaching and blocking schemes. And even though the offensive line is a lot of the reasons why the running backs are struggling, we just haven't been able to break through and deliver consistent gains at all. The talent's there, I believe, but the output hasn't been close to what we need for a competitive run game. And for me, a lot of the issues in the backfield come down to politics. Rico is by far the best back we have right now playing for the Dallas Cowboys. But for some reason, because of Jerry Jones, we're giving the ball to a washed up Zeke. The film doesn't lie. And I know Cowboys Nation, there was a lot of content creators out there telling you, oh, Zeke, you need to give him the ball, this and that. Zeke is so good. And especially, oh, you need, it's situational. Give it to him in the red zone. Well, you watch the Philly game. They gave the ball to Zeke in the red zone. And what did he do? His first carry, he fumbled. He fumbled. But you're going to tell me that Zeke is so great when the one thing that he should be good at, he couldn't get that done. How do you fumble on your first carry in the red zone? That's supposed to be your thing. Oh, weave it through the whole. Stop. He doesn't have it anymore. It's a wrap on Zeke. Then I better not see Zeke on this roster next year. But back to the situation. Somehow, Rico, when he's a lead back, can do his job effectively. But when, like I was talking about, we're giving series to Zeke, tails off. And when we need to pass, Zeke is a liability in space. This is no different to the last time that we saw Zeke in Dallas. But this is where uh, I can get that there's difficulty to improve that because Zeke is on the roster. Um, and it's obvious that Mike McCarthy's being told, got to give the ball to Zeke. But in general, I don't see Zeke and Mike McCarthy being back next year. But even if that's the case, we need to reinvent how we run the ball to actually scheme guys in certain run fits. And until we change that, I don't see most backs being able to overcome the politics in Dallas. Even if Jerry's saying we need to give this guy the ball, okay, cool, scheme a way to make these guys look better than they really are. Most coaches should have that ability. Mike McCarthy doesn't. So again, this is why you're getting situations where when we're running the ball, we're struggling so bad. But again, I think a lot of our issues come down to scheme and not actually using guys to their abilities the way they should be. But going into 2025, hopefully we'll improve on that. Now we're talking about, or we're at the wide receivers. I gave this position group a C. They've shown flashes, especially when it comes to yards after the catch, and we're supposed to have deep threat capabilities, but I just don't see it. Just the way we are running plays right now. Inconsistency has been a plague for this group, with drops in critical moments and a lack of separation against strong defenses. Again, I think that comes down to the scheme mainly. We're hoping to see some of our younger guys step up, like Jonathan Mingo, but as it stands, our receivers aren't striking fear in opposing secondaries. Outside CD Lamb, who is there to be scared of? Maybe Cavante Turpin, but the way we use him, it just doesn't make sense. And the fact that um, we don't cause fear in secondaries is why I have to give this low grade. But again, I think it's mainly because of the scheme. We barely use motion. When we do, it's just lazy and just basically a guy just resetting in the same position, which effectively puts no pressure on the defense, which again, McCarthy does this over and over and over and over again, and it's annoying. A lot of the routes that we run are just comeback routes, flat routes, and which are some of the laziest routes, and they're easy to cover, especially if a defense is sitting in zone. And they only really work if you have the speed, and that's what makes things dangerous. But we're just calling them over and over and over again, so defenses start picking up on those tendencies. And then, for example, they could just sit a corner 5-10 yards deep and just let you run to them and then sit. And once the wide receiver sits, they can easily break on the ball, or they'll have a linebacker underneath just in case you try to catch the ball, which effectively, if you don't catch the ball, you're not going anywhere. It makes playing defense easy, and we're not using the speed that we do have as in Turpin. We don't use him right. We use him in a very predictable way where it's like, oh, if it's a jet sweep, and we just stopped giving the ball to Turpin on jet sweeps. We've just been using CD on jet sweeps for some reason. And then we'll have Turpin running go routes on the outside as if he's Tyreek Hill, even though he'd be more dangerous in the middle of the field doing crossing routes. But again, bad scheme makes our wide receivers look bad. And this unit is going to need an overhaul of the system or the players. But I I I just don't get a lot of the stuff that we're doing offensively with our wide receivers, and it's just it's just bad all around. Next up, we have the tight end group, which they earned themselves a D minus, so basically an F. Uh, this was the year we were going to see if this group was truly good or bad, and to be honest, it's just downright bad. The front office and coaches just missed on almost every player at tight end outside of Ferguson. And even him, I doubt they will pay him just because of how poorly the coaching is. Outside Ferg, we really have no threat in the passing game. And how we block puts our tight ends on islands versus bigger defensive ends a lot of the times. And it's just all the way bad. Hopefully next year, uh, we have that full overhaul of that room. And unfortunately, Ferg probably would be a casualty of that. Um, because they're not going to pay him. But only reason Ferg is the only reason this position group isn't an F, because yeah, these guys just don't look good as a unit, and we're just not using guys the way they should be used. It is what it is. It's just it's hard to watch, especially with this group. There's a lot of people hoping for Schoonmaker to take that next step, and we're just not seeing it. Jonathan Stevens gets hurt again. That was a project by Jerry, so yeah. If not for Ferguson, yeah, this position group would be an F for sure. Now for the offensive line, and I played offensive line back in the day, so I have more love for this group. Um, I tend to scrutinize this group way more than most position groups, and just for me personally, it's been bad. I've been saying since last year, we're not as good as people made this group out to be, and now you're just kind of really seeing it. So I had to give this group a D. And the group has had major struggles both in pass protection and run blocking. Of course, injuries and lack of depth have really exposed our weaknesses. We don't really have a true swing left tackle or even tackles in general like that, even though we have guys like Matt Walesko, which they won't really rely on him in games or even as a backup like that. But for some reason, he's still on the team. Make it make sense. But if the line doesn't improve, which I don't see it improving, our offense will continue to suffer as it has been. Uh, it's sad to say that this is probably going to be Zach Martin's last year, just by how he's playing and just the wear and tear is just finally catching up to him. And this is my personal opinion. I'm not saying that people are saying this, but for me, Our right tackle Terrence Steele has no business staying on this team. But unfortunately, I think he's going to get a pass since his contract was just restructured. But if it's up to me, he'd be cut today. Plain and simple. Uh, Guyton looks like he's having some mental issues, as in when it comes to his confidence, it not being there, and if him not and he didn't start or play at all in the Philly game, and they chalked it up as injuries. So it's looking like a worrying sign. So we'll see what that how that goes. But at this point, the Cowboys are going to need to find a replacement for left guard. Uh, well, they're going to need a replacement for everything but the left guard and center because Tyler Smith right now is your best O lineman by far. It's not close, but we're at a point where we need to retool this whole line and get some big, strong guys that just want to run over people. And we don't have that right now. Investing in young, powerful linemen is going to be crucial, but as of now, the O line is one of the weak links on this team, especially how Mike McCarthy's calling plays where he's not giving guys the help that they need. Blocking scheme just looks all over the place. Guys not knowing what to do. It just doesn't look good. So, of course, it's going to affect the running, it's going to affect the quarterback. It starts from the O line, and uh, the Cowboys just don't know what they're doing at that position group at all. So, we need to find an identity, get back to that ground and pound and maulers. But yeah, the way things are right now is just got to give that position group a D. Well, switching over to the defensive side, for the D line especially, I got to give this position group a D. We're simply just not generating pressure on the quarterback, basically not doing anything in the run game, and opponents are finding it way too easy to make plays in the trenches, which puts more pressure on our linebackers and secondary. And yes, I know our whole D line was injured, so I understand why it's not good, but we need to fix the D tackle position because under Mike McCarthy, it came to bite us in crucial games and even now. And I think Zim has done a great job with what he's had, and if not for the lackluster offensive play calling, I think we could have won way more games. But like the San Fran game and even this last Philly game, we could have made it a game, but we couldn't score. It is what it is. And as of things are right now, I'm out on Mozzie. I need the Cowboys to draft a big, nasty D tackle to replace Mozzie. And since Osa most likely will be gone too, we need to get his replacement as well. We need to draft at least two D tackles, maybe three if possible. But we need to shore up the middle. We can't just have teams wholeheartedly just running at us like it's nothing. Our linebacker, if we do that, our linebackers will be free to make plays all over the field. And if we want to control the game, it all starts up front. And with our current lineup the way it is, we're just not getting the job done. So get those D tackles shored up, and I think that's going to solve a lot of our problems on defense. Well, with the linebacker group, I had to rate these guys a C plus. This group has shown a lot of potential, and they've made some key plays, but overall, just still a little bit inconsistent. Um, but for me, it's clear as day. Overshown is a stud on our defense, and we need to build around him. Hopefully, the new coaches that come in find a way to use Overshown and Micah to just wreak havoc all over the field and not just use Micah as just an edge rusher. I think Micah can be dangerous in run defense as a linebacker because of his instincts and his speed. And I wish we had more innovation to use him like we use Overshown. I think we still need to draft a true Mike linebacker. Maybe Overshown could be that, but I prefer to use him as a blitzer and just a missile in the run defense in general. But I feel like if we get a true Mike linebacker that can get everyone set, has the instincts to read offenses, that would make our defense spooky. Because Kendricks at this point, he's older, can't really cover like he used to. So it's going to be interesting what happens next year. But I'd be on the lookout for Dallas maybe getting a middle linebacker in the later rounds of the draft. And if we can get the right guy, oh my goodness, this defense is going to be scary to watch because if we have a guy that can cover those wheel routes, especially, or can sniff out those screen plays, even if he's just half of what Sean Lee was, oh my goodness, this defense is going to be scary. So hopefully we get that shirt up in the draft. And even if they bring in a veteran middle linebacker, we're going to need somebody with fresh legs that can sniff out those plays. We need a line another linebacker with a high IQ that can get everybody set. We if once we get that, we get a true Mike. Oh man, it's gonna be scary. Now we're at the safeties, and they earned a rough grade for me. For me, I give the safeties an F. It's been a tough season for this group. Uh, they're allowing too many big plays, missing key tackles, and generally not providing the kind of last line of defense that we need. This might be the second biggest area of concern for the defense, as opposed to, for me, D tackles is number one, and it's just right there behind them. And it is clear that we'll need to prioritize talent at this position in the offseason. Because for me, I don't see either Malik Hooker or Donovan Wilson being a Dallas Cowboys next year. I think those guys were a good fit for Dan Quinn's scheme, but their inability to cover tight ends at the very least make them liabilities to me. They aren't good ball hawks anymore, and they've just been taking poor angles all year against the run. And this position is um, more than likely that we got to address them because I think what's going to happen is they're just going to go elevate our younger guys in Marquise Bell and Wanye Thomas. They'll probably be the starters next year. And I would still draft a safety just to add depth in case these guys don't pan out. But I believe Hooker and Wilson, they should be gone immediately. I haven't seen anything good from either one of those guys. And just straight liabilities and coverage, run defense all around. I don't see them being on NFL rosters next year. The only person I could possibly see is Donovan Wilson go to the Commanders because Dan Quinn loves him for some reason, but he's not a fit for what the Cowboys need in the future. So yeah, both those guys, they should just get them out of Dallas as soon as possible. So for quarterbacks, I had to give them a C minus. We have a few promising pieces, but overall, the lack of consistent coverage has hurt us in big games. Opposing wide receivers are just getting too many open looks, and we're not creating enough turnovers like we used to. And I get it, different scheme that's not heavily reliant on the corners. But this and it has to do a lot with not having a pass rush because a lot of our guys um, were hurt. A lot of our pass rushers are out, injured, all that. But we need depth at the quarterback position because Kalen Carson, especially this year, has struggled a lot. And I get it, he's a rookie, but defenses have just been picking on him all year, and not having Bland has really shown that the Cowboys have a depth issue at cornerback. I can see the Cowboys going to get a corner in the top 3 rounds because it's really that bad. But hopefully, with the new defensive coordinator, we can fix some of those issues. I wouldn't even be mad at them promoting Al Harris to DC, but again, we'll see what happens with me personally believing that Mike McCarthy will be gone. I think that's going to kind of shake things around, but we'll see. We just really need corner help. Jordan Lewis has been playing great this year. Um, I personally didn't see that coming, but even with that, not having Bland out there has really made it easy for teams to really pick on our cornerback too, and not having safeties that can cover make it kind of easy for defenses to really pick us apart, especially if we're playing man. So with Mike being gone, we'll see how everything turns out next year. But definitely we'll address this position group very, very early in the draft. Finally, we're at the highlight of the Dallas Cowboys position groups for the 2024 season. And for me, the highest rated group, in my opinion, that's the special teams. I gave this group an A plus just because I think we have the best kicker in the league in Brandon Aubrey, and the only bright spot to our struggling offense. Devontae Turpin is dangerous, and love watching him return kicks and punts. So I've really nothing bad to say about our special teams at all. Really, really great unit. Even our punter. So no issues from them for me personally. But I just wish we had a balanced attack, not just be heavily reliant on special teams, which unfortunately is how our team is right now. But that's at least one great bright spot that I could talk about. Special teams, great position group. So there you have it. The 2024 Dallas Cowboys roster broken down by position. Cowboys Nation, we have a lot to work on in the offseason. This season is officially over, so we need to start preparing for next year, 2025. And we as a team have a bunch of tough decisions to make, especially if we want to compete for a Super Bowl next year. We need some serious improvement across the board. This foundation that we currently have is very shaky right now, and it's clear that we need to overhaul some position groups in order to be contenders. Let me know in the comments what which position group do you think is most urgent for us to upgrade, and who would you like to see the Dallas Cowboys bring in from a free agency perspective or from a draft perspective. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I know it's hard to be a Cowboys fan right now, but I'll keep rooting for my team. But I'll also call out the garbage when I see it. I'm your boy Mecca Mike. That is Meccha Mike. And I'm out.